Okay.
Sit down.
Sit down and shut up. Which would not be a good podcast. Or would it be a good podcast title? Sit down and shut up. Just dead air.
Maybe.
Might be kind of relaxing.
Yeah.
Good anxiety reliever.
The occasional throat clear or something.
That's good.
You're either on the bus or you're off the bus.
Welcome aboard, episode 39 of Ridin the Bus, the official Iowa Wild podcast. On the way, Ben Gislason, Joey Goldstein knocking on the door of 40. And I'm fresh off the golf course. I was not knocking on the door of very many birdie putts today.
What'd you shoot?
91.
Okay.
At TCI, though, that's
respectable.
91 at a different golf course, and I would have been more frustrated. But for those of you that have played Tournament Club of Iowa, I know you have. That is a monster of a golf course.
Yeah. How many golf balls did you lose?
And
And in what span? Because I think I have you beat.
Well, I know the event you're alluding to, and I know you have me beat.
Mhm.
But I think I probably lost maybe 6 to 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've had worse days there,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. You have to go there knowing very well that you're going to lose at least probably 2 sleeves, if not
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. I went into it feeling pretty good. You know, I was playing good golf at the time.
It's
And,
not a place to go and improve your confidence as a golfer.
I started really well too. I went par on the first hole. I think par on the second hole, and then the third, is it second or third hole is the par 3 with the hill on the right side.
Oh yeah.
Stuck it, birdie putt, missed it because I was given a bad read by the person I was golfing with.
I played with that person this morning, by the
gave
way,
me a bad
too.
read, so I missed.
I
that
didn't
putt.
listen to any of his
No.
reads because of the story you told
Ended
me.
up going for par, and I was feeling great. I mean, 3 holes in a TCI. If I'm even through 3 holes, I'm
Yeah.
feeling really, really good about my game. Things got worse as the time went on. Things got worse, and I went through a stretch. It was probably 2.5 holes, and I must have lost somewhere between 9 and 12 golf balls. I'm not one to lose my composure that bad on the golf course. You know, golf course etiquette, be respectful and everything like that. But I got a little rattled, and I lost it and quit for a couple holes and just sat in the golf cart and contemplated my decisions and my choices.
Well, that stretch that you're talking about too is doozy.
Yeah.
I know. Again, I just played it. I know the exact stretch you're talking about, and I definitely lost some balls on those same holes. Maybe not quite as in rapid a fashion as you did, but yeah, nonetheless, beautiful golf course. I think arguably the best in the state that I've played for sure. And I know there's other great courses that you maybe have to get a little bit further outside of Des Moines to find them. But a wonderful golf course, and I know I was late this morning, so apologies to you. And to Abby Kimball, who you guys were here on time.
Well, before, we get some stuff we want to dive into, but I also don't want to keep our guest waiting too long. We can see it. Our guest here is in the waiting room, so let's
yes, he is.
Let's just jump right into it and send it on over to assistant coach Ben Simon. What do you think?
Might be the fastest intro in history. We've had some fast intros.
The people are probably pumped.
The people are pumped. Yeah, these guys just spent 5 minutes talking about their piss poor golf games.
Right. Stick around though for the.
We got plenty more after. Yeah,
the bus line. We got some bus line stuff. We're gonna give you guys our state fair schedule, so you know if you want to come check us out or say hey, you'll know where we'll be at and when. Some other cool stuff. So, yeah.
Let's get to our guest, and one of the great personalities I've had the opportunity to come across in hockey, and we are going to get into heavy prank discussion because it's been teased a little bit, whether it's by Brett McLean on an earlier podcast episode, this loving but also battle-laden relationship between Ben Simon, our assistant coach, who is the guest today, and equipment manager Brandon Schroeder. We're going to dive into that and plenty more. A great personality and former Atlanta Thrasher. We're going to get into that as well in assistant coach Ben Simon. On to period number 2 and our guest here today, one that we've already primed our listeners for as, and I said this before we were on screen together, Ben, but truly one of the great personalities I've had the pleasure of coming across in the sport. Ben Simon, assistant coach of the Iowa Wild. And Ben, we've been looking forward to this today. You were one that was on our calendar for guests early in the season, and I think you had one of the best responses to will you come on the show with expletive, yeah, and I can talk like this on the podcast, right?
You can. We'll have to make some edits.
I said we have the ability to bleep things out. So I mean, try to save us a little bit of editing time by not using too many.
Sure.
But we can carve around that if we need to. But thanks for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. It's been a while.
Well, let's start. It has been. Let's start with this one, and I'm sure you've got some good ones. Podcast episode number 39 of Ridin the Bus. We want to make fans feel like they're sitting on the bus next to you, just swapping stories. And I know you've got 1,000 of them, and you're a great storyteller. And when you played in the American League, it was even more of a bus league than it is now. And it's still a bus league. But do you have a great bus story that comes to mind that can help get this bus rolling for our fans?
Well, probably in Iowa or just in general. I'd say you're correct with the history of the league being a bus league and the number of hours. It's like their dog's years. 1 year in the American League is like 7 years in a normal person's life. It's long trips, odd hours. You're getting in, sometimes 5, 6 in the morning when people are getting up and going to work. But I'd say this year in Iowa, probably the most memorable one was probably when we first, because this is the first year we've had our new bus, and it is phenomenal. It's an upper deck, like for the people that are listening, it's a double decker. The players are upstairs. The coaches have a great setup down underneath. But for whatever reason, we couldn't figure out the TVs for like the first month. And the TVs would be 2 a.m, just a bright screen shining, and no one could sleep. It was just shining right in your face. So we had to tie up with hockey tape. Benny, I think it was your idea, with pizza boxes. And just old pizza boxes, like cheese dripping off it, taped to the thing, so that we could have a little bit of darkness just to do a little work or catch some sleep. So that was an interesting one. And then honestly, the Jeff, our bus driver, is fantastic at what he does. He's a huge fan. But sometimes it's like, is he trying to hit every bump between here and Chicago? And it was, I don't know if you remember the one trip, it was like every half mile that you're bumping up, your head's hitting the ceiling almost. It's like, holy smokes. And not to his driving, not to just like, oh my gosh, this bus is sensitive. And then the other one from this year was probably when we pulled in, we were dropping guys off. We were coming from, maybe it was Chicago or Rockford or somewhere. We dropped a couple guys off in Coralville to get their cars or get some stuff that would then make their way back to Iowa the next day. It was on the way home to Des Moines, and we got stuck in the parking lot. Remember on the snowbank?
Yep, in Coralville. At a Perkins. Yep. It was a Perkins. That's where we picked. I think we dropped off Peyton Jones at a Perkins, and that was the same trip when the shocks were down. That was the trip you were talking about, where I literally clipped your head on the ceiling a couple times because the shock. It was so cold, the shocks on the bus stopped working. So I mean, there was no suppression when you bounced. It was just a hard bounce.
So we're gonna go after these guys for workers' comp with their back issues, buddy. No, but I mean, when we got stuck there, Jeff was like, he just gave it and gas and went over. We probably took out a couple quarter panels of the bus, but found a way to get us from point A to point B. And last I checked, we didn't lose anyone on any of the trips, so I think we're good. The pizza box story is a great one. I hadn't thought of that, Ben. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I mean, you think about team services, and team services encompasses a lot of different things. And Ben has been there. Ben helped out on the team services side when you were with GR.
Other duties as assigned.
It does. And yeah, I was sitting there. There's the one big TV up top. There's a bunch of small TVs, but the one big TV, it's right on the front right of the bus. I don't even know if that TV per se works we never got a DVD playing in that bus all year. But that screen, for whatever reason, works great. But the only thing we've ever seen on it is there's a big sign that says, please fasten your seatbelt, and it's bright yellow.
Oh, nice.
So at about 4 a.m, that might as well be a spotlight shining on your face. So we had an old pizza box, and I slashed it in half and grabbed some tape, and it worked. We got some sleep.
Safety never takes a holiday.
Modern day MacGyver.
Put on your seatbelts.
The bus is indeed rolling, and fans have already gotten a sample size of what you're about, Ben, and that is joy. You're serious when it comes down to it, and we're going to get to your work ethic, and I want to hear about your printer because that's one of the great things that is discussed amongst the staff in the Iowa Wild locker room. But let's start with this. Ben, you bring so much joy to every day being around you in the Wild locker room. This whole staff does that very, very well. You're a big part of it. We've teased it a little bit. Brett McLean talked about it when we had him on earlier this summer about this ongoing prank war that has been played out between yourself and Big B, Brandon Schroeder. What are some of the pranks that come to mind that you laid on him, and likewise that he has laid on you or tried to lay on you throughout the course of last season? And what can you tell us about any plans you've concocted this offseason to get Big B this season?
Well, I think the first, let me preface it with, it is fun to have an environment where you come to the rink, you enjoy the people that you work with, you enjoy the people that you interact with, and you create an environment that is comfortable, loose at the right time. So there's also time to work and to be way more serious. But with that being said, the times where, I like to come in and mess with Big B, I like to, in the morning or after we go home after a pregame skate, I come back early, and he's usually very unaware, unassuming. I just like to quietly come in, whether it's early in the morning or in that moment before the game starts and guys start filtering in, just quietly find a spot to hide where I know he'll come back and doing laundry and then just jump out, scare the bejesus out of him. And he, like clockwork, it's too easy. And there have been times where he's gotten like just absolutely mad and like, what do you do? Grow up. No, I'm not gonna. No, I won't. We've done you go to the Spencer stores or some of these little gag stores. You can get the electronic shocking pens, the shocking lighters. So I'll just throw a pen on the ground or right outside the coach's room, and he's there to pick it up. Oh, so stupid. And he just shocks himself. So.
Very old school pranks here.
Yeah. Or hey, can you sign this for me? And yeah, sure. No, shocks himself. But the sad thing is, he's done it 2 or 3 times. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, or whatever the saying is. But I will say that B, I don't know if it is, if it were meant, but he did forget my shoes a few times, or he did forget some of the players' equipment sometimes. So I don't know if that was meant to happen or if he just forgot to bring them. But one of the things he did do a couple of times that I didn't catch up on is he would put, for the listeners that don't know, guys that tape their sticks on the blade of their stick on the ice, he put hockey tape on there to create a little bit of friction to handle the puck a little bit easier and better. And guys have little idiosyncrasies how they tape it. Some guys go the full blade, half blades, heel, the toe. But he would like to every now and then put clear tape around my blade. So what clear tape does is you lose that friction, so you shouldn't be able to handle the puck very well. And so he would do that quite a bit, but I don't know if it's shame on me or shame on him. I didn't even notice half the time. I don't know if that tells you how bad my hands are or what a crappy job he did trying to pull a prank on me. But he did try.
I already can't wait to see what both of you guys have in store this year. I can only imagine Big B has been sitting around stewing this summer about he's got to have some grand plans laid.
I just picture a big whiteboard in his bedroom, and he's just like connecting dots, and he's got yarn pictures.
Here's Ben's office. Here's my office.
Yeah,
it's a dartboard.
So this prank culture, clearly, you've had to have picked a lot of it up from being in hockey. You're not the first person to be a prankster in the sport of hockey. You won't be the last one. Is there a best prank or a most elaborate prank that you think you've seen from your time, whether it's as a coach or as a player?
Some of the good ones actually was on me when I was a player. Recently, it was my first or second year pro. I had just purchased my first new car. It was it's a big deal. It's your first car. So that was an Acura MDX. So a little kind of like a SUV-ish kind of hybrid type car. And it was awesome. So I pull up practice, and it was with the Chicago Wolves. And at Allstate Arena, you practice there. You park up top. You go down, practice there. But so park the car, go change, whatever. And so when you change, obviously your keys are in your pocket in the change stall. And we went out for practice. And couple of guys had taken the keys out of my car, along with a couple of trainers, and they took my car and they filled it, entirely filled it with the packaging peanuts, those styrofoam things. And so I walked out and they called a news station there to film my reaction coming out. And right outside the door, you walk out there, secure at the west entrance, there was my car, brand new car, filled with packaging peanuts.
Goodness.
Oh, crap. So I'm like, how am I going to clean this out? So literally just opened the doors, windows, and just drove around the parking lot, just stuff flying everywhere. But maybe a week later, my air conditioning wasn't working, wasn't blowing, it wasn't coming. I was like, this is like, it's a brand new car. What the heck's going on? Not even thinking that it was correlated to these packages. So I took it back to the dealer. The dealer said, we'll leave it here. We'll take a look at it. And then they called me back a couple hours later and they'd taken the dash off and they had a bunch of baggies of these packaging peanuts because they had gotten sucked up into it. And it was blocking the air from coming through. And they were, oh, these must have happened in the factory. I don't know how these would have gotten in there. I'm like, oh, yeah, I have no idea. So it was a long prank, but it was correct, and they didn't charge me for anything. So it was a little bit frustrating, but good on them. They got me good. And then we'd like to get our old trainer in Chicago with, we would post, stupid little things for sale, Chicago Tribune, like a used lawnmower for like a really good price or a used car, really good price, and put his phone number on there. And this is before, they could block callers, this and that. So his phone would be ringing off the hook in a big publication like the Chicago Tribune. But hey, ask for, so-and-so. And so is this Kevin? Yeah, I'm calling about the lawnmowers. Like, what? I don't have a lawnmower. It would be nonstop for like a week straight. So it was hilarious. Or at least we thought it was hilarious.
Is there one that you've pulled yourself that you look back on, you're like, I'm so proud of how this all played out?
Very proud of them all.
Yeah, but is there one that's just like, it takes the cake?
No, not exactly. I mean, I think I'm smart enough to realize when it's a little bit overboard and when to mess with people and not to, because people can get sensitive. People can get a little bit ornery at times where it's like, ooh, that might be a little bit too much. Or knowing that, okay, I'm not going to, because this got taken up another level. Like Rob Brown in Chicago was infamous. If you mess with him, it was almost like he's going to go nuclear on you, and all of a sudden you're missing an arm. Like, whoa, I'm not messing with that guy. So there are certain things where you drew the line, but yeah, nothing too crazy, it was just all, we had fun.
You bring up Chicago, your time there, but plenty of other stops on your AHL passport. Also, time with the Atlanta Thrashers. There aren't many people in the scope of the hockey world that can say they wore that Thrashers crest. There's not very many. You're one of them. Walk us through playing with the Atlanta Thrashers, playing in Atlanta. What was that experience like? And it's timely now because everywhere you turn, people are saying hockey's coming back to Atlanta at some point here in the near future.
Well, it was obviously, I was young in my career. It's the first team I signed with. So, it was that youthful enthusiasm. That was everything to try and make the Atlanta Thrashers, and a different market in the Southeast for sure. And honestly, the minor league team that year, the first year that I was my first year pro, our minor league team was Orlando, Florida. So again, total different market for hockey. You're not your typical hockey market. You walk outside every day. It's 80 degrees. It's sunny. It's beautiful. Sometimes the practice rinks are so foggy because of the humidity and everything. You can't even see across the rink. So it was different. The fans, this is years ago. It's 25 years ago. I don't know how, I won't say knowledgeable, but it's just like sometimes you'd skate across, you'd try and hit someone, you'd miss, but you'd hit the boards, make a loud noise, and people are like, ah, woo-hoo! Like complete missed assignment. Like what? But they hear a lot. Or the fights and the pugilistic aspect of the game, and a lot of people went for that. But it took a little bit for it to grow to its popularity, and then I think in a huge market like Atlanta. I mean, the rink was right downtown. We shared the rink with the Hawks, and I think it was just a tough market to crack into. They did establish themselves for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it kind of went away. But I do think some of that has to do with the management group and how it's run and the resources available. I think the new proposal that everything I've read is with Anson Carter kind of running it. He's a bona fide hockey guy. Before, when I was there, and I don't want to sound ungrateful because they were awesome to me. Like it was great, but it was like the ownership group was like 10 people, and it was just, I don't think they were quote unquote hockey guys per se, the ownership group, but the management group, they managed it as best they could. Yeah, Don Waddell did a heck of a job as a GM. Kevin Cheveldayoff was the minor league GM, and then he went up to Atlanta. So I mean, they did a really good job. Obviously, they're still working in hockey and running great programs with where they are. Obviously, Donnie just went to Columbus from Carolina, but I'd be hard pressed. It is such a big city, such a great market, and some of those cities down there have done great. The Carolinas, the Floridas, the Tampa Bays. Like, why can't Atlanta do it? But when I was born, or my brother was born in Atlanta, that's when they had the old Flames.
Mm-hmm.
They've had the Thrashers that have now moved to Winnipeg, and now, is it 3 strikes you're out? Is it third time's a charm? I don't know, but a lot of those teams have done well. It's probably a variety of reasons why it hasn't stuck, why it hasn't been able to sustain it. But if they knew, obviously it wouldn't be such an enigma.
It's so interesting you bring up ownership. I think when you work in hockey, you hear horror stories more so from the junior levels about bad ownership and what that can do. And that's not saying the Atlanta Thrasher ownership was bad, but when you look at teams that have extended success, it does start there. It starts with the ownership, and whether they're knowledgeable or not, the investment that they're willing to make, not only financially, but also just with a personal investment in the team. And it can be a fine line, because you will see owners that maybe get too personally invested, and then they start calling GMs and telling them what to do on every trade or every free agent signing. But I think people sometimes maybe don't quite grasp as much how much ownership does impact an organization, even at the NHL level. It's a lot easier to see it when you're dealing with a junior hockey team than a National League team, but certainly excited to see what hockey could look like in Atlanta. And I'm with you, Ben. I feel like it's a place that it should work, but just like anywhere, you got to find the right people to make it work, and it does seem like Anson Carter could very well be that right person, as well as the rest of his group that he's put together, and it'll be exciting to see when that happens and if it happens. I think everybody thought Atlanta might be the next stop, and then all of a sudden Salt Lake City comes in. And speaking of good owners as well, that's another guy that's got a lot of love and praise around pro sports, and Ryan Smith.
Yeah, it's investment in the community too. I think that's a big part of it, is like you're not just coming in to just simply try to make money off of the fan base. It's putting yourself and ingraining yourself in the fabric of that city and that area that whatever it comes into. And that's a big piece. I think especially these new teams that have come in expansion-wise with Vegas and Seattle and now Utah, that's a big key cog to their wheel to keep them spinning in the right direction.
A team that is really entrenched in their area, a team that you had a lot of success with in the Chicago Wolves, Ben. You've climbed, I should say in the Grand Rapids Griffins too. Both great examples of AHL organizations that have had massive success, that are well known in their communities. 2 wonderful barns to go to, Van Andel Arena as well as Allstate Arena, great places to take in a hockey game. You raised the Calder Cup trophy with the Chicago Wolves in 2002. You also raised one as an assistant coach with the Griffins in 2017. Climbing that mountain as a player, as an assistant coach, what was the same and what was different about those 2 journeys?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'm full of them.
Yeah, you are. Well, when we won it as a player, our group that won, it was my second. We had come off our first year. I was a rookie, and there was a group of, I think, 9 or 10 guys that came in the first year. So we were all kind of in it together, kind of cutting our teeth together, going through a lot of firsts together as a group, the 8, 9, 10 of us. And we were surrounded by a lot of good older veterans that kind of showed us the way, kind of tempered our youthful enthusiasm, kind of channeled our energy in the right direction, helped us learn to be pros away from the rink. And the coaches that we had, that first year, it was in Orlando, and we had won the Turner Cup, won a championship there. And then ironically enough, we played Chicago in the finals that year, knowing in the finals that we were going to be affiliated. Atlanta's affiliation was moving from Orlando to Chicago. So we were facing off with, that group of 8 to 9 guys against guys that were going to be in Chicago next year. The Steve Maltes, the Rob Browns, the Bob Nardellas, the Wendell Young was a goalie. He didn't make that transition. That was his last year, my first, but that second year, again, we had the second year pros. So we're a little bit better, a little bit more mature. in the not in every aspect, but a little bit more mature in terms of hockey playing. Now we're surrounded with even, I don't say even older guys, but guys with even more experience. You know, a guy like Rob Brown had 49 goals in the NHL. Steve Malty, I don't know how many goals he scored in the American League, and like really guys that could really play, and took a lot of the burden and the onus off of the younger guys that carry the weight, and allowed us to kind of just play a little bit freer. So I think the chemistry and the makeup of a team is huge in building a championship team. But I also think you have to have, you know, the right mindset of those people, you know, the buy-in, the really just the where you want to go as individuals and collectively as a group. And I think that as a player, it's easier to do than as a coach. Because a coach, you're not in there every day, every second. You don't have those intimate, you have those player coach relationships, but they're different than player to player. And I think as a coach, in 2017 when we won, I think Todd Nelson cultivated an environment where that bridge between player to coach, player to player it wasn't like this and this. It was more north, south, east, west. It was, and times had changed since then. You know, it was 15 years since. And I think it was more of a everyone's in this together type thing. And it just created such a great environment. It was fun to come to work every day. And obviously it's a lot easier when you're winning to have success, but you're also fighting, especially in the minor leagues. Is there, you know, when a player gets called up, you know, are you disgruntled? Are you, oh, that could have been me, that should have been me? Is it, you fight that a little bit. And I think when you cultivate the environment that, you know, it's earned and the opportunities go to the player that does deserve it, and there's no one feels slighted and everyone's happy for the next guy for their successes. I think that creates those kind of those type of environments that lead to those kind of special seasons.
It's interesting you bring up that point on watching a teammate succeed and watching a teammate get promoted to the National Hockey League. Last week, Troy Grosenick brought up this same thing, talking about the successful teams he was on, whether it be in Milwaukee recently, San Jose, how there was this healthy competition where, yeah, if someone gets called up, like, yeah, you want that to be you, but you found a way to not let it impact you or let it create a rift. Joey gets called up and I don't. I'm going, well, what the hell? Mm-hmm. Is there any magic recipe to helping cultivate that environment, or it is kind of something does it have to happen organically with just the personalities that you have in your lineup? What can you say about that? Because that seems to be one of the common themes, at least in our discussions with people that have been to the highest of levels in the American League. That's a part of their team.
Yeah, well, I do think it comes down to your character of those individuals that may potentially face those situations, and the character of the players that are specifically brought in to kind of help manage that in that locker room. And then you've got the coaches that are there to help kind of maintain that, you know, that even keelness, not too high at the highs, not too low at the lows. Because not only are you dealing with the excitement of guys getting called up, when a guy gets sent down, you're dealing with the guy that's disappointed that he was just sent down from the NHL. So, you know, the group that we have in Des Moines is fantastic because, you know, Brett himself has gone through that. I have gone through that. Nathan Kyber has gone through that. So Richard Bachman has gone through that. So having those experiences, and yeah, sure, it was a little bit ago, but we understand. Everyone wants to be in the NHL, but everyone can't. You know, it can't happen for everyone all the time right away. So there's that patience, there's that opportunity, and when your opportunity comes, you got to grab it.
This group this year. Last year's group, it felt like there wasn't the insulation, and pressure from the players got put on guys that maybe weren't quite ready to handle it all yet. This year, it does seem, at least from an outside perspective, from the American League side, depth and I don't know if I want to call it veteran presence, but certainly an older presence has been established in the offseason that the Minnesota and Iowa Wild have had. Does the framework of the team right now on paper look like a team, not saying you're going to go win the Calder Cup, but that could have that type of persona to it with the right mix of the older players that have the right mentality to make the team as a whole, and then, of course, in turn, individually themselves successful?
Well, I think every organization, I think, is happy right now on, you know, end of July, beginning of August. You know, I mean, honestly, last year when we had what we thought our projected roster would be, we were pretty excited. You know, we were sitting there, we're going over power play, we're going over line combinations, deep pairings.
We were,
and then
too.
all of us,
yeah, we did the same thing.
You know, we're excited. sudden, there were a couple like significant injuries up in Minnesota that impacted us, where guys were called up. There were a couple significant injuries with us within our team that had impact, and all of a sudden our depth was tested, and it just you have to stay healthy for sure. You have to be a little bit healthy. You have to have good goaltending, and you have to have a little bit of luck. And that's the reality of it. I mean, when we won, going back to when we won it as a player in 2002, I think when I was with the Wolves, we finished, I think top 10 teams made it. And then 7, 8, 9, 10 played a best of 3 series to get it down to your 8 teams to get your playoff kind of field. And we played Cincinnati in that little best of 3 round. Game 3 went to overtime. Cincinnati came down. They hit the post off a rush. They hit the post. It carries off the post, hits the end boards, kind of funny bounce. We go down on the ensuing rush and score the game-winning goal in overtime. But it could have gone an inch the other way and our season's over. Instead, we played for another month and a half and we won a championship. So I think you do have to have, you got to have complete buy-in from the players. You have to have a lot of things go your way. And I do think that health and depth plays a huge factor in it.
As a coach, you got your start with the Rockford Ice Hogs. Towards the end of Brett McLean's career as a player, the Rockford Ice Hogs. What a great dynamic that must have been at the beginning of this coaching dynamic between you and Brett. You got to coach him at one point. You guys shared any laughs about that time when you were his boss and then it changes over? And also, what was he like coaching when you were coaching him in Rockford when he was a veteran player at the time?
Well, we laugh at it a little because that would have been, I think, 2011, 12. Where he come to Rockford. But we laugh about it because halfway through the year, he ended up going over to Europe. So I had such an impact on him that he left the continent to go find a different calling. So that's how much of a impression I made on Brett as a coach. But that was my first year coming in as a young assistant coach. You're kind of, I didn't have a lot of responsibilities delegated. I was learning, and it was good on Ted Dent, the head coach, and Steve Pops was the other assistant to kind of bring me along a little bit. But Brett was, from what I remember, that team, we had a lot. That was the year before they won. I believe they won the cup in 2013. So the 12-13, that lockout shortened season cup. But Brett was brought in, a veteran guy that could play NHL games if they needed him to in Chicago. But he was also there. We talked about insulating those young kids to make them learn how to be pros and Brett was a consummate pro. You can see that in how he acts as a head coach, how he conducts himself, how he acts. But there were guys on that team that went on, Brandon Peary, Ben Smith, Andrew Shaw, Jimmy Hayes, Brandon Bolig, all those kids were on that team that would eventually go on to play significant roles for Chicago. I'm trying to think if there are any other guys, but about halfway in, you see it in the American League. It takes sometimes right around Christmas and these players start to turn the corner, and then might be like, these kids are good. And so Brett, for not for any selfish reason by any means, but you're as a veteran guy, you got to start planning a little bit ahead, thinking ahead. And he had an opportunity presented to himself to go over to Lugano, I think. And it was, I think he made another 3.5 years in Lugano, another 2 years in Austria to go over to Europe and play, as opposed to, he could have stayed there. But at that point in time, Chicago's mandate was young kids are going to play.
Yeah.
And so there is something to be said, to help these young kids. But at a certain point, you have to say, okay, I'm going to help these kids get their legs underneath them. And once they get running, then it's like, okay, I've got to start, he's got a family. The difference in an older guy and a younger guy is these older guys have families to feed. And these young kids, sometimes you don't realize that until you get older. And so Brett did what was best for him and his family. And he went over and had a great end of his career over in Europe. And if you were to ask him, he tells me, Lugano was awesome. He loved it.
Yes,
great
I've
place,
heard that too.
Family, great experience for his young family at the time. And, he had a great impact on those kids. A lot of those kids that ended up going on to Chicago and winning a Stanley Cup the next year, I think would have to say that they learned a ton from just coming to the rink every day with Brett and how he handled himself as a pro, how he approached the game, how he prepared, and how he acted.
For you, you've obviously been an assistant coach, you've been a head coach. Very different dynamics with those two roles, especially within the locker room and relationships with players and things like that. How, for people who may not be super familiar, some of our fans, what is that kind of the difference in dynamic like between being a head coach and now being an assistant coach? Like, how does that? How does your day-to-day really differ with those two roles?
Well, I do think first and foremost, as a head coach, you're in charge of kind of setting that tone and delegating as to who's responsible for what. As a head coach, part of your job as a head coach in the American League is to help develop the coaches around you, to help coaches get better with their every day preparation. So I think one of my strengths coming in last year was Brett had never been a head coach before, and so I do think he leaned on me for those decisions, whether or not he agreed with my decisions or how I would assess it. At least he asked. He was very receptive. He was very empowering to the assistant coaches, very inclusive of their thoughts of what they would do, of what how they would handle certain situations. Great dynamic there. But as a head coach, going from a head coach to an assistant coach, what I did in Grand Rapids to coming to Iowa was a little bit different. Obviously, as a head coach, you're overseeing everything, and you've got to make sure everything is in a line and row. As an assistant coach, your job is you're really good at something. So for me, it was I'm going to get back to working with the forwards, get really good. And I love focusing on small area work and small details, and then the power play. I haven't been solely in charge of the power play for a long time. So, you're 1 or 2, 3 areas and you really get good at that. Pre-scouts get locked in. I really love doing that kind of stuff. So it was good for me personally, kind of take a step back and really focus on kind of recalibrating. And it was refreshing.
Along those same lines, and I don't even know if you'll give us a full honest answer on this. One thing that Brett McLean always lauds Ben Simon on is an unparalleled work ethic. Game gets done. We're in Milwaukee. Going back to the hotel, if it's a back-to-back, and Brett thinks you don't sleep. Can you walk us through a game day and the work that you put in on a game day? And that includes, I think, a lot of work that you probably do between the hours of 11 p.m. and maybe 4 a.m.
Well, that's the best time when no one can bother you.
Amen to that.
Everyone else is sleeping, so no one can bother you. But a typical game day, it depends on what your schedule is. Are you playing, are we playing 3 games in 4 nights in 3 different cities? Are we playing the same team back to back at home? A little bit is dependent on that, but your example, if we're playing a game at home, say we're playing Milwaukee at home on a Friday, and then we're going to travel to play Rockford on Saturday. So prior to the game against Milwaukee, Ray Sylvester, our video coach, will have broken down all the games against Milwaukee and Rockford, and then he'll put them in a folder or a file, and I'll go through all those games. Sometimes I'll go back, and if I've got time, I like to watch the games anyways. I'm a big fan. I like to learn the league. I like to learn the players. So I'll sometimes just go through and watch it myself as well. But I'll go through and get every type of face-off they've run, every type of breakout, every consistency. So this is a team that really likes to, maybe they go back and they first touch rim a lot. They just get the puck out, or they like to use the middle a lot. So little idiosyncrasies, little tendencies that you can try and exploit them on. And we put together a package. So it's probably 3 or 4 hours of work that goes into condensed. At the end of the day, Ray probably puts in 3 or 4 hours himself. I put in a couple hours, and it gets broken down into a 5-minute meeting. And then after the game, we'll play them. And that doesn't even go over power play or penalty play. And then we will then play that game. And then same thing after the game, we jump on the bus. We're driving to Rockford. During this course of the week, I will have watched all of Rockford stuff, gone over that. And then on top of that, you got to watch our game and where we excelled, where we need to improve, and kind of things where we can be better at, or things that, we did this really well. And it doesn't really matter what they're going to do. If we continue to play like this, we're going to have success. It doesn't matter what teams are going to do. So, and it depends. Sometimes we just want to shut up and play games. Is it too much? Do we show anything? Like, both teams, this is their 3rd game in 3 nights. It's not about X's and O's. It's about who wants it more, who's going to be, who's going to find that extra gear. And sometimes less is more. So I do think that it depends on your group. It depends on last year's team. We had a lot of young defensemen that probably needed to see a little bit more video than older guys. And some of our older forwards, they probably thought, okay, this is sometimes too much. But you have to find that kind of fine balance as to the group that you have. And I think that over the course of the season, I think that we did a pretty good job of finding that balance of what's too much, what's just too little. And whether it showed or not, I do think, being around the game as a coach this long, I thought that we did a pretty good job of adapting to when we needed to.
These are the conversations as a hockey junkie. Just stick it in my arm.
Yeah.
Like I can sit and listen to this kind of stuff all day, and it's probably getting a little too into the weeds. But for me, I can drink all this in forever. I don't think people understand, and I'm so blessed to get one of the most unique parts. I think the vantage points that I get, and I'm blessed to have a lot of great vantage points. Obviously, being a broadcaster. But sitting the backside of the bottom of our double-decker bus and watching these guys work as a whole, you got Brett McLean here, Ray Sylvester there, Ben Simon, Richard Bachman, laptops out. Bacher's got his notebook that I would love to get to look in that notebook sometime because he's tracking shots and this shot and that shot and this save. And then I just love watching the little reactions that I'll see sometimes. If some play's awful, you'll just see Ben just go like, look straight up in the sky, and then Brett will be like, Ben, you got to see this, and it's this great little network of just guys getting so into the minutia, and yeah. It's one of the things that I just think is so charming about where I get to sit on the bus because I can just sit back and kick my feet up and I just watch it all happen, and the hockey junkie in me is just I love it.
It's the things that people don't see. They don't get to see this every day, and they don't. A lot of them just see they're very surface level. You know what I mean?
They think you just stand on the bench and go like, hey.
They don't know the behind the scenes. So like this, while it is in the nitty gritty, like this is different perspectives to hear. I think that's something that fans appreciate.
Lastly, in the minutia, and it will probably garner a good story, the traveling printer.
Oh, where do I start? The printer.
Left this one open-ended on purpose.
I like when I do a crossword puzzle. I don't do my I like to have the new stuff. I like to have something tangible hold in my hand. So when I have a pre-scout, when I have power play, I like to have something tangible in my hand and hold it. I think it's important to have the ability to be prepared. Maybe we got to print out a contract. Maybe we have to in Grand Rapids, I was in charge of a lot of that stuff. So you had to be you have to be able to print on the go. So I literally take the printer wherever I go. If I'm going down to the lake, I'll take the printer with me just in case I need to print something. It's become kind of an ongoing joke. I get ridden a lot for it, but don't go anywhere. It's sitting in the corner right here. So don't go anywhere with that. I was just actually it's funny. I was joking this summer just because Shaky and Big B Shaky's come from New York, Big B has come from Detroit. They're making their way back to Iowa before they went up to Minnesota for development camp, and they're always on top of things. Hey, can we do you guys need anything brought up from Iowa to development camp? And I said, hey, do you guys mind? Can one of you guys on the way through, pick up my printer, shoot up to Grand Rapids, pick up my printer? And Shaky thought I was serious. He's like, he called, text me the day before. He's like, just leave Toledo now. Do you want me to swing up and grab? I was like, Shaky, it's a $200 printer. No.
Shows how Shaky works, right? Shows how those guys work. He was like, where do you need me and when?
Yeah.
That would have been I would have showed up there. I was just he would not have gone over well. You were joking. Really? I just took 6 hours out of my day.
But on top of it, Ray travels with the printer. That's I think that's the funniest part of it is so we have 2 printers on the road. There's the one that Ray has, which I'm guessing that one is provided by the Minnesota Wild.
Probably.
You own this is a Ben Simon's printer. Yes.
2 of them.
You have 2 printers? I see. I didn't learn something new today. He's got 2 printers. Got to have a backup.
But yeah, there you go. See? But yeah, it's like Ray's in a trunk underneath the bus or goes in the equipment truck. Mine is in my bag right next to me.
There you go. Ray Sylvester, Joey, I know you wanted to touch on him because as much of a character as Ben Simon is, Ray Sylvester's more of a character.
Yeah, everybody's seems to have a good story about Ray, and either a joke he told, a story he told.
The Pittsburgh accent, which isn't a Pittsburgh accent.
Yeah, what if you got something that comes to mind? If we say, give us a story about Ray, what do you got?
There's a lot. There is a lot. Ray actually is one of the guys coming in last year's first year in pro hockey. I thought, all kidding aside, did a tremendous job of developing personally his relationships with the guys. He did a hell of a job of getting used to pro hockey, and he was a great addition, a great hire by Brett. But with that being said, our first team event was a wiffle ball tournament. Remember at Recplex to start the year? And apparently Ray in the summer is a part of like a wiffle ball league. Like it's a legitimate league where they play wiffle ball every weekend or whatever. So he was tooting his own horn, his stats. He's a pitcher, he's a hitter. And then we went and played, and he was actually lights out. It was unbelievable. So a couple long fly balls, long home runs, and he could throw the ball, turn it, spin it. Like, oh, geez, all right, he's pretty good at wiffle ball. So that was interesting. Not too many guys have that a wiffle ball. I don't know if it's a wiffle ball fetish or a wiffle ball skill. I'll leave you to decipher.
We'll call it a skill just for the.
That's
that's probably the right way to go. Yeah.
So while you were telling that, I was able to scurry over, and if we could have Abby Kimball zoom in on this baseball card or wiffle ball card that was made for Ray. Abby, would you mind zooming in on that for us, please? Yeah. Nice and clear. Ben, you don't need to see it because you made it.
Again, the printer comes in handy, buddy.
Let's see. Yeah. This was done with the printer.
Yeah, we should probably, Joey, why don't you read the back of the card for our fans?
So Ray Sylvester, the Iowa Wild Whiffers, he's a pitcher. The fun cards have trivia questions. What year did Ray lead his team in every possible category? The answer: every year he plays.
Also, the fact you had to flip it upside down. Yeah. That's great detail. That's what it would be like on that card. It's like the back of the cereal box.
I'll read you some of his stats. In 2022, he went 43-0. He had 2 saves, 432 innings pitched, 22 earned runs, 10 walks, 586 Ks, and a .46 ERA. Lifetime, he's 346-7, which is that's got to be some kind of
wiffle ball record.
Yeah. 26 saves, over 2,700 innings pitched, only 41 earned runs, 11 walks, over 4,800 strikeouts, and a .13 ERA. Little bio. Ray is a wiffle ball legend. His dominant pitching, consistent ability to smash dingers have made him a clear candidate for the Wiffle Ball Hall of Fame. In his free time, Ray enjoys cutting video for the Iowa Wild.
There you go.
So
there you go.
It's pretty spot on, if you ask me.
And that was, and it's laminated. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful.
No joke. Obviously, I knew this was a joke, but when I've seen this, I thought, wow, they got like actual cards.
Yeah, they went to a card shop and had.
No, I realize you made this with your printer. Yeah. I thought like you guys got like a bunch of these made like as a joke. That's great.
That's a great segue to utilize why the printer is important right here with the Iowa Wild Whiffers and a great photo of Ray. I only got one more question for Ben. You got anything more you want to get to? And then I know Ben said he has some questions for us, so we'll see about that. My final question, Ben, is this. I've never brought this up with him, so I'm excited to put him on the spot here. Oh, boy. So my first 2 seasons with the Iowa Wild, first 3 seasons, but first 2 where I was full-time play-by-play. One thing that I like to do is get an opposing coach opinion. Whether it's usually it's a head coach, sometimes it's an assistant, sometimes head coaches, others are more available, some aren't. But every coach at one point has given me at least one interview, except for Ben Simon in Grand Rapids. I got turned down every single time I asked. I got Mike Knuble, great interviews, by the way, great interviews. Or I got Todd Krieger, but I didn't get Ben Simon. Tell me why.
Well, probably because I was getting guys called up or running around with all the other answers off my interview. Or, but I would say take it personal.
Well, I did, Ben. I've been holding it as a grudge for years here.
It's funny. You never brought this up. You're going to wait till you got defense of I can't say what I really want to say on TV here.
Exactly. I'm smart. I know how to use the media to my advantage. Manipulative.
Dirty. I did not realize. I could apologize, but I'm not going to.
And what's so funny is then so I have a certain. And when Ben's on the bench, you're all business, like all business on the bench. So I had a certain idea of Ben Simon, the steely glare on the bench, very serious, wouldn't accept any of my interviews. And then what I got was something completely different.
What a joke this guy is. Well, you're not the first one I let down.
All in good fun. I had to bring it up. That's all we got. You said you wanted to turn it on us. You have questions for us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
What is your biggest fear?
Wow, we're getting philosophic here.
Going live. What's your biggest fear?
Like legitimately, like what am I scared of? Like there's we've talked about it before. I think it's called like thalassophobia or something. It's like when you can look in like a body of water and you can't see the bottom and it just kind of keeps going. That freaks me out. Like if I can't see the bottom of like the ocean or the lake that I'm swimming in, it gives me like the heebie-jeebies.
I think everybody's got that a little bit, but I can do it without really, like, you can't do it.
It really bothers me.
Yeah, it really bothers you. Huh, greatest fear. Boy, that's a good question.
Cool. I think I just nailed it. Where you are speechless and you can't talk.
Yeah, maybe dead air.
Dead air.
Dead air might be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm grateful to be married. I think being alone your whole life would be scary for me. I like talking to people, having people to talk to. So
not having a voice.
Maybe something like that. Someone to share your thoughts with. I think not to get too philosophic and heart wrenching on people, but I think that's one thing for me that'd be a deep fear to not have, and it doesn't have to be a wife. Just general having people to be around.
Sure.
I think I'm probably actually generally maybe a bit of an introverted person. I'm kind of a mix of both because I need both. I need to have some alone time, but if I get too much of that, the wires get spinning in the head, and I got to be around some people. So usually the season starts just in time so I can be around Ben Simon to brighten my day.
There you go.
Good question.
Okay.
Good question.
Next one. You've done a ton of interviews over the course of your career. Who is your best interview and or your most memorable interview, and who is your worst and why?
What do you mean by worst?
You interpret it.
Okay. Joe, you want to start?
I mean, I haven't interviewed nearly as many people as you have. Some of the fun ones, because I've only really interviewed people for different podcasts, whether it's here, San Jose. Jake Middleton, we were in San Jose. We had Jake and his brother Keaton on at the same time. They were a great interview together. They were like riffing off each other, debating over who was the better uncle to their niece and nephew. That was a good one. So that's probably my best in terms of like bad interviews. I don't know that I've really had a bad one, but I don't have nearly the same interview experience as you do. All mine are like this. They're all fun. They're all
laid back and casual.
Yeah. I'm never really grilling anybody.
So for me, that's a fabulous question. The interview that comes to mind, actually is from this year, this past year, with Stephen Fogarty. It was a live interview. It was on AHL TV. It was the Military Appreciation Night, and those folks really well. Obviously, Ben, I know him really well. You know him well, Joey, and our fans will know of his character. He is stoic. He's not an emotional person, highs or lows. That's what makes him so great. He is here. And he scored on that night, and his late father, the Rear Admiral in the U.S. Navy, had passed away. I think it was within the last 2 years of the date of this game, and he scored in that game, and it was a big goal. And I asked him about that, and there was a little emotion that came out, and he even said, I don't normally do this, but I'm getting a little caught up right now. And I think as an interviewer, the goal is to try to capture the human element a little bit. And you're not going on to make people cry. That's not the goal. But you want to try to get a genuine sense of who this person is. And I think it was pretty inspiring to see Stephen capture a moment like that, and then to be able to really show fans what that moment meant to him in the moment. I'll remember that one for a very long time. I think that's the one that pops out. Worst interview. Not a specific interview, but interviewee. I won't use his name on. I'll narrow it down to a few coaches, but it was when I was with the Des Moines Buccaneers. There was a coach who just wouldn't give, and I don't think it was purpose or intentful, or I don't think it's intentional to try to give short answers, but he just didn't talk very much. So I'd come in with this question and talk about this and talk about that, and what's the plan for the power play tonight? We'd like to score a goal. back to me. And then you come in with a general idea of the questions you want to ask, but the best interviewers, you listen to what your subject is saying. And it made me good as an interviewer because this was early in my career where I had to be ready to go because you need to stretch this interview for 3 to 4 minutes, depending on the coach. With Brett, I can do Brett is the absolute perfect mix. He's just long enough, but he's not too long because I've had that too. But this coach, he would barely ever give me more than 2 to 3 sentences. And so I had to come in ready and rearing and ready to go. And it made me a better interviewer. But I remember the first time I interviewed him, he answered with about 5 words and he came back to me and I may have had to do another take because I was just, so we got to do this again. I wasn't ready for him to come back. So that's the one that jumps out to me.
I had one come to mind. So when I was in college, I was trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do with my life. And I had an internship with the newspaper back home, with I was in the sports department and I'd go around, I'd do different interviews. And the very first one that I did, it was with an independent baseball team in Worcester. So it was the Worcester Tornadoes. They are no longer a thing. But they had me go interview one of their players. I can't remember why, but I went out and talked to him, and he didn't speak any English.
Oh, boy.
It was all he could understand the questions I was asking, but for him to answer them properly back, it was all in Spanish. And my Spanish knowledge was like a little bit in high school and a little bit in college, but by no means was I fluent. So it was like having the recorder get everything he said, and then having to have someone translate for me so I could write the article.
Wow.
The article. Yeah. I remember hitting in the article and all the red lines that were through it, and it ended up getting published, and it was fine. But it took a little while to get there. That was not so much a bad interview because his answers were great, just a very bad interview experience.
Yeah, and did you have any idea that's how it was going to go walking into it?
You
were hopeful that he had some English in there. I wrote 3 articles for the paper.
That was one. I wrote one about a wrestler who's going to the Olympics, very timely right now, and then I wrote an article, like a recap for like a summer league baseball championship and whatnot. So yeah, that was probably my worst.
Any other brain busters?
I got one more. You get 3 days.
I like the start of this one.
Well, you get 3 days. Day before, day of a game, day after a game. You go to one city in the American League. Where are you going?
Ooh, that is a fabulous
day before,
question.
day of, and day after.
So you get a day to explore before. You got to work, obviously, the day of your game, and then get a day after to explore. Maybe you're going to see the town or to see this aspect of the city. What city and why?
The first one, I love San Diego. So
that's going to be one of the days for me too.
But it's one city. You get 3 days, one city.
It's one city per day.
No, one city.
Okay.
So for me,
I'm giving you a question to go explore the city for whatever reason. And is it because it's hockey related? Is it why that city?
I would go with Austin just because I've never been to Austin. I've only heard tremendous things about everybody who's been down there to play games. So to go down to the, where Texas is at and Cedar Park and kind of that Austin area, that would probably be my choice just because I've never been there before and everybody raves about it. So
wasn't that where your travel nightmare came from, Benny?
Well, which one? The top story is actually through Houston going to San Diego, my first year.
Not Austin. Houston,
no,
okay.
But there has been some bad stories there. Ice storm, we can get on that at another time. San Diego is the runaway with that for a lot of reasons. But I tell you what, the first one that came to mind, and this is going to make him smile, is GR, Grand Rapids. I've been blown away. I love going there. I love going to Grand Rapids. I love the hotel we stay at. I love Van Andel Arena. I think I say it every time we go there. It's a cathedral. I feel like, you're going to, it's a religious experience going to a game there.
Box.
Yeah, that's the only bad part is you got about 4 or 5 flights of stairs that I'm hauling my trunk up. I get a good arm curl in on the way up with that, but and
is that a religious experience because your watch is going, oh God, oh God.
Well, the record versus the Griffins last year was not very good, but I've seen some wonderful games there in my time for Iowa. But I love going to GR. I love some of the restaurants there that we can eat at. And I would, that's in the running for sure. But Austin's also in there too, because Austin, you can get a little bit of everything there. A little bit of what San Diego offers with the weather, a little bit of what GR offers with kind of a unique town and unique area. That's Austin is high up in my book too. But I love GR. I love going there.
I want to ask one question about GR, and I alluded to this story before, and I have no idea if it's something that even made its way past like into the locker rooms. But the Western Conference Final, the year you guys won the cup, I was working for San Jose. I was out there at the time. I was helping cover social, and during one of the games, the Zamboni's going around on the ice, and the guy driving the Zamboni stopped the Zamboni in the middle, like at center ice, to get off and propose to his girlfriend who was riding the Zamboni, but left the Zamboni on and flooded center ice for a little bit, to the point where I'm pretty sure it delayed the start of a period. Did any of that ever get back to you guys?
This is the first I'm hearing of it. No.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. The guy, like, hot water, Zamboni's running. He just, like, gets off the Zamboni and proposes to his girlfriend and then realized, oh, my God, I forgot to turn the water off because he was so nervous and everything.
I can't say I blame him.
I don't know how long it delayed. I thought delayed it a little bit. It was crazy.
Joey.
Crazy.
What game? Was this in a playoff game?
Yeah, it was a conference finals.
I mean, in any game, bad, but that's a really, really important game.
Yeah, it might have only been delayed by like a minute or two because it was like there was so much water, but like.
Well, the fact that he hadn't heard about this means shout out to the maintenance crew. They took care of it.
Yeah, but I remember that people came over there like, hey, you got to move it. You got to move it.
Well, I think it's 2 weeks running now. We've gone long because our guest has been just so delightful. Ben, anything else? We've enjoyed this thoroughly and knew we would, but thanks a million.
No, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, we got about a month left here. So month left, and we get right back at it there. The rookie tournament that bleeds into main camp. And then before we know it, that first week of October, we'll be ready to go down to Des Moines. So it'll come quick.
On the actual bus with the pizza box up on the TV screen.
Yep. That's right.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, guys.
Gigantic thank you to, as I said, such a great personality, gave us a ton of time, and much like last week, I think we could have kept going with Ben for a little bit longer there. And how about him flipping the tables on us? And
yeah, we haven't had that.
Like, greatest fear question. I was like, geez, we're getting really into it here.
We've asked people if they have questions for us, and nobody ever does. So I like that. And I know I brought it up, but I looked it up. Thalassophobia is an intense phobia or fear of large or deep water.
I think you said it right. Yeah, you did. Well done.
These pictures they just
do they?
I get like the heebie-jeebies just looking at them. So like that's definitely my biggest fear. Like if I'm in like in a lake, usually have a couple drinks to not really think about it. For
a couple beer sodas.
Time out in the boat. But yeah, my feet are churning like it's a duck. You know what I mean? Just constantly going, and God forbid anything touches my foot, I would lose.
Everyone's lounging on pool noodles out in the deep water, having a great time, and Goldstein's just sweating bullets.
Yeah, no,
this is fun, guys. Yeah,
it's just I don't like thinking about it, but everyone's you just kind of get used to it after a little bit. But yeah, the initial is just not my thing. Yeah.
The heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ben, and we didn't even get into it. Wonderful father, wonderful husband. That's the one thing that is just it rings so true in this organization that I love in this room, is whether it's Brett McLean, whether it's Richard Bachman, whether it's Ben Simon. I know Nate McKeever is married. I haven't got to meet his wife yet, but like, hockey can be a place that it tears apart families.
Yeah.
And
these guys are
nothing
all good
further than
people.
The truth. That statement couldn't be further from the truth down here. Great family men, people that I aspire to be like later on in my hockey career as a broadcaster and team services person. So I didn't even get to get into that, and I wanted to talk to him about that because I know when he's not cutting film, he's watching, whether it's his daughter who plays out at Middlebury. He's got another daughter who's an athlete in Grand Rapids. So he's constantly keeping tabs on them from afar, which I know can't be easy. Mm-hmm. But much love to the Simons, much love to Ben, and thanks for all that time. And with that, we head on to period 3, brought to you by
Wildwear.
Yeah.
Wildwear.com, the official online store of your Iowa Wild, with the largest selection of Iowa Wild fan gear, one-of-a-kind apparel, and exclusive specialty merchandise. There's always something new at wildwear.com. Don't miss out. Head to the website now. Start shopping. First of all, before I get into this, huge props to Kelsey Kent, officially promoted to Director of Merchandise
Well-deserved.
Operations. Very well deserved. But that State Fair hat that I alluded to, you got
to touch
you
it.
got to see this.
You got to touch it.
For the first time. Was it everything I described it to be? Like,
Well,
it just screams State Fair.
It does, and you really led the horse to water well, because I was thinking exactly. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I had a general idea because of your excellent teaser of it. So, is all that stuff going to be out by the time this podcast airs? Can we talk about it? Or
it's going to be coming at the fair. I know they
So
took
we'll
some
wait.
pictures
We'll
to
wait.
get
We'll
some.
wait.
They're
Okay.
going to promote it, I think, a little bit ahead of time. There's a couple new hats that are going to go out at the fair, and some T-shirts as well. The T-shirt, I may not have been paying attention. I know there were some talks of State Fair T-shirts that were pretty cool. So I don't know which one officially made the cut or not. But new merch at the fair, obviously. Come check us out in the Varied Industries building. Speaking of the fair,
Hey, we're going to
while
be
we're
there.
talking about it,
We're
we're
going
gonna
to be there.
We're going to be there as we are every year, and we wanted to give you guys the schedule ahead of time so you could come say hey, hang out, whatever.
We'd
it
love
may
to
be.
see you if we already know you, and if we don't know you, we'd love to meet you.
Yeah. So August 9th, which is the first Friday of the fair, we're going to be at our booth at the Varied Industries building doing our Faircast. We will.
I love that
there.
show.
Yeah, it's a lot
It's
of
so
fun.
much fun.
You never
It's-
know
yeah.
what you're going to get.
No,
We're going
it's
to be
true
there.
podcasting.
Yep.
Grassroots podcasting.
Our goal is to be there probably around 10:30 or so. Hang out there till noon-ish, maybe a little bit later. I'm going to try and get some better signage this year, so I don't just.
What do you mean? Then writing it on the back of
Yeah,
a
that
team poster?
Yeah, no, we could
There's
probably
something kinda
do-
charming
we could
about
probably do
that.
better. But so we'll be there. Come say hey. If that's your time to come on, ask us questions. Ask
Be
us.
on the show.
Yeah, just
you
be
get
on
to be
the
on the show.
Be on the show. I know there's a lot of you guys out there who want to do that. But we know the fair's obviously a big deal, and it is in the morning, kind of mid-morning kind of thing. But there's really no rules when it comes to the fair. Everybody seems to go to the fair and enjoy their time there. So,
There
come
are
on out on the 9th and say hey to us. But then the big one, the Wednesday, the 14th, I defend my title. I defend my title where the boys are going to be Chuck and Pooh. It's my that's what I have written there, Chuck and Pooh. Just going to be defending my title as the cow chip throwing champion from last year. I got to admit, I have not been training the way that I would have wanted to. But you know what? I went into it just green last year, and we're going to do the same thing this year.
Would you say you've rested on your laurels?
A little bit. A little bit. Yep. But God,
But
if I win, I'm going to be insufferable.
Yeah, you already are insufferable with the one victory too. I don't even want to think about it. What do you think is going to be the difference now? Because you had no did you expect to win, or last year? Are you one of those people who you just expect to go into everything that you do and I will win, whether I have any preconceived abilities?
So usually, no, that absolutely.
So you did, okay?
Yeah, that I went into it going, I'm going to throw this thing pretty far. This was before I picked them, understood the weight or anything like that. And then when I finally we picked up the chips, and I was like, oh no, this.
We need to
this
have
is
Abby
gonna-
superimpose
this is
the
gonna work.
video of you throwing it over this part
it's-
just to help people relive it a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But I'm excited to get back out there and do it. Never thought I'd say I'm excited to go throw cow chips, but here we are.
To touch cow chips or to do anything with cow chips.
Yeah, got to beat 140 feet. That's what it was last year, which I think I can do. I did get lucky last year. Kind of caught wind and got under the trees.
That's
so
true. Just like Ben Simon talked about, to be a champion, you got to have a little
yeah,
luck.
so hopefully I can do that again. But it's all about finding that right chip. So I will be selectively choosing in the bucket. But that'll be on the 14th. We'll be there. That's kind of our state fair schedule, at least officially. Other than that, just some upcoming events. Wild on Wheels, presented by Quickstar. The kickoff at Brenton was great. We're excited for the next 3 stops. We'll be at Pella on the 22nd this month.
Petting zoo.
Yep, there's going to be a petting zoo, food trucks, all
Can't
kinds
leave that out.
all kinds of great things, different games and whatnot. We're starting to try to figure out more ways to expand. We're going to be in Waterloo on September 6th, and then Coralville on September 12th. We've talked about live music, more food trucks. There's a lot of different things we're looking into at these stops. So if you live in that area, if you don't live in that area, come on out, spend a night with us, and have some fun. So that's Wild on Wheels. And then we got Wild on the Green, presented by Wheatley Vodka on October 7th. So early bird registration is now closed. So get in while the getting's good, because spots are filling up. You want to golf with Iowa Wild players, take part in some fun hole activities, hope we win some prizes. There's free lunch. We got free gifts for all the golfers. Definitely get in now before spots fill up.
Yeah.
And
maybe I'll play in it this year. No, I don't know. That's such a good day.
Tough. We'll see. I don't know.
It's just so hard that first week of the season. Yeah, we'll see. See how I'm feeling. Might be a late game time. I can't be a game time decision. If I tell somebody on the planning side, I have to be like, no way.
Yeah, no. You got to
make
up your mind and let us know. Man.
Well, a huge thanks to Jeremy Core and Executive Podcast Solutions for making this listenable from however you're jumping on board. Another episode come and gone. Our next one will be the Faircast, which we're extremely excited about. We hope to see all of you out there at the fair. We're in the Varied Industries building.
Yep, same location, right?
Same location, nice.
Right next to the cookies. Yeah, can't wait. I'm excited.
Yep, one of our favorite shows of the year. We hope you'll join us. And a big thank you as well to Ben Simon for a great chat. Still some more guests in the hopper the rest of this summer as we continue to get closer and closer to the opening of this upcoming Iowa Wild season here in Des Moines. But for now, we will bid you adieu. For Joey Goldstein, thanks to Abby Kimball for producing this as well. I'm Ben Gislason, and as always, 2 honks for the win.